If you're buying land, especially in a foreclosure, and you skip the survey, you don't know what you own, and nobody's going to tell you until it's too late. This is for anyone that is trying to buy a piece of land, a lot with water on it, or a foreclosure property. Situations where the boundary lines of the property you're buying are not always as clear as the listing makes them look. Because if a boundary line is wrong, you could close on a property, hand over a bunch of money, and then find out you don't own that like right that you thought you did because it doesn't belong to you. And at that point, you're in a legal battle, not a lake house. So let me tell you the story of John. John bought a piece of property that had lakefront, got him access to the lake, had this beautiful dock being sold in a foreclosure. It was a great opportunity. John was getting a steal on the property. He was excited. He was buying the house for his daughter, right? He wanted to buy his daughter a beach house. Put as an offering, it got accepted, got to closing. The problem is what John wasn't told, not by the listing agent and not by the seller, was that the property lines were actually in dispute. Now, the hard part as his closing attorney, I don't get to see what's on the MLS. I don't get told that the boundary line is in dispute unless somebody tells me. So here's what ends up happening. The previous owner had purchased 3 pieces of land, different times, and only put a mortgage on one of them. So when the bank foreclosed, they could only take that one piece of land, not all 3. So that guy that had gotten foreclosed on still owned the rights to the water and actually to my client's well. Because he didn't purchase them all at the same time, the bank did not have the right to take them away. Jack closes, pays the bank their money, he gets the property. A few months later, weather warms up, Jack is working on the dock. Within a week of working on the dock, he made some improvements, made it look nicer, cleaned it up. He gets a cease and desist letter saying that he needs to stop trespassing on the property of this guy because he owns it, not Jack. Jack gives me a call, do some digging, call the real estate agent, look at the land records. Found out that there was a comment in the MLS listing that said the boundary lines were not clear. So John, even though John saw pictures of the dock, everything looked beautiful. That's not the same as owning it or getting it transferred to. This situation took, unfortunately, John months to resolve. It cost him money to sort out and a lot of headache and stress. It all could have been avoided with a simple survey being ordered before we close. We've seen issues like this. We flagged it sometimes. We get enough information to do it. Most of the time we try to fix it or Jack could have walked away. And instead, he didn't have all the information. We didn't all have all the information. So we couldn't solve the problem. Now, just to not leave you in suspense, John negotiated a deal with the seller and we ended up buying those 2 pieces of land. So a couple of lessons to you if you're buying a home, especially if it's plain vacant land, I highly recommend a survey. I also recommend it when you're buying water rights. You want to make sure you get them included. And even more important, in foreclosures, because the bank doesn't know what they own. They're basically just telling you, we own what we own, and you figure it out. Nothing in the title search could have told us that John didn't have lake rights. It didn't tell us. He bought exactly what he negotiated for, is the sad part. He just got a little bit misled in the sense of he didn't have all the information. Lesson number 2 is realize when you're buying a property from a foreclosure, there's a lot of hidden history. The bank that foreclosed on it knows nothing about the past, right? They don't know what the condition of the house is. They don't know what the boundary lines are. They don't know who owned it before them. They don't know anything about the property. So you as the new owner are responsible for figuring all that out. So we should be doing a survey if there's a question about the boundary lines. We should definitely be doing title searches, right? It's required by state law, so you have to do title search. We should do municipal search, looking to see if there's only any old building permits. All of these things we're looking at is to give you the most information so you can make your decision in a wise and intelligent manner. Because we've had situations where foreclosures, somebody split the property afterwards and sold off half of it. You can't get that back, and the mortgage company is not always giving you the right information. They need to provide. They only have the information they have, right? They're not going to spend money on surveys. That is responsibility of a buyer. Your real estate agent is not a title expert. Just to make that point, right? They can help you find a property. They can negotiate offers. They can manage the transaction, but they can't tell you if there's clean title or if there's issues with the title. That's my job as your closing attorney. They can't tell you boundary lines. I can't tell you boundary lines. I can tell you boundary lines, but I can't actually take you to the property and show you boundary lines. Right? So realize there's a bunch of different professionals you need. The realtor will help you negotiate things and work things out. Your attorney is going to look at the land records and make sure everything is in order that way. And your surveyor takes the land record deed to the property and says, point A, point B, point C, point D, and here's your square. Right. So you need to have all the correct professionals in part of your deal. Problems also are found before we close are easier for you to resolve. They can help you. You can walk away. You can negotiate. However, if you just close and you end up like Jack, John, Jack, same person, obviously, it's a nickname. But John gets a situation where he he doesn't have an option. He's got to spend money to fix it. So don't put yourself in that situation, right? Get as much information as you can during the due diligence. Make a wise decision. Because after we close, any problems that occur are your headaches and your problem. So if you're getting ready to buy land, waterfront property, or anything sold out of a foreclosure, don't guess at what you're buying. Message me the word survey, and I'll send you a quick checklist of things that you can do and questions to ask so you can get to the closing table without these headaches. And so you don't end up owing somebody else's legal mess. As always, follow us so you don't end up in one of these stories, because every day I will share real life stories from real closings so you know exactly what to look for before you sign anything. And so you have a smooth and easy transaction.